Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Vigilante Izuku becomes a Ronin, Deku x Momo, Part 1. So before we start, go check out the author of this fanfic, Big Dog Never Sleeps. Link is in the description. Also subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's begin the video. Izuku Midoriya groaned, as he saw his clock said 1:48 AM. Why was someone texting him, tonight of all nights, this late? Honestly, it was his fault. He put his cell on vibrate, and was not silent. Blinking the sleep out of his eyes, he checked the screen of his phone, grimacing at the light attacking his eyes, and saw it was from Kazuho, 2 messages. Immediately worried for her, he entered his passcode, and checked the text she had sent him. Hey Greenhorn, I'll drive you to the USA tomorrow. The exam is at 9? I'll pick you up at 8. Make it a quarter before, probably will be traffic. Smiling at the text, he quickly replied with an OK before fiddling with his alarm clock. He had set it for 6:30, but with the news of a ride meant he could sneak another half hour of sleep. As he began to change the time, however, he thought again. He didn't want to walk into the exam still trying to wake up, that could be bad for him. Plus, the time could be spent making sure everything was in proper order before going into practicals. With a sigh, Izuku changed his alarm back to its previous time. He shouldn't be complaining, however. This was still the most sleep he had gotten in months. Izuku let the cold water run over his skin, trying to shock his body awake. It had yearned for him to take the extra 30 he knew he had to give, but he had decided against it already. He was wasting time at this point. He had finished what he needed to do in the shower a few minutes ago. He couldn't afford to give into the doldrums, so he finally turned off the water and began to shake off the wet droplets from his hair before grabbing his towel. Drying off, and finishing off the rest of the morning routine, he went back to his room to get everything he needed. He didn't need a jacket since it was going to be warm, despite it being the end of February, so he went with the most think at a glance he was wearing a middle school outfit piece he had, and grabbed his already made gear bag from his closet. Wandering into the dining room, he set the bag on the table, and began preparing himself a quick breakfast. Wash a little rice, start a kettle of water, find a clean frying pan, put the rice in the cooker, and wait. He took this time to pull out the sneakers from the gear bag, and remove the sole with a handy screwdriver. Double-checking the pressure plates, and springs were working on both, he strolled over to the cabinet to get the ingredients to make a quick miso soup. After screwing the soles back onto the shoes, he double-checked the studs on his gloves to make sure the wires were properly connected to them, and they were firmly attached to the knuckles. Grabbing a few eggs from the fridge, Midoriya quickly got into cooking the rest of his breakfast. Sitting down to his meal of eggs with rice and miso soup, he slowly began to fidget with his final piece of support gear. Getting up to restock the medicine pouch with gauze, Koichi was a freaking pickpocket for the stuff with all the scraps he got. He returned to see his mother looking at his food, and gear strewn about on the table. Embarrassed, Izuku ran over, and began to apologize. "Oh, I'll put that away now, and I'm sorry Mom. I didn't think you'd be up so I didn't make you anything." He put the shoes and gloves away before looking towards the kitchen, wondering how quickly he could make her things. His mom shook her head. "You don't have to, dear, I'm getting ready to head back to bed. I just wanted to make sure you got on time. I don't want you to miss the big exam," she told him with tired enthusiasm. He smiled at her earnestness. Izuku knew his mom had to be tired, her job acting as the night manager at the local karaoke spot keeping her up until 4 o'clock in the morning. She should be getting some sleep. In fact, he had told her not to worry about him, and to get her to sleep. But instead she was here. Slowly he began to walk over to his mom with his arms outstretched. She leaned into him, wrapping into him for a hug. He hugged her back, telling her in her ear, "Don't worry, I'll do just fine." Still in the hug, he froze, as she told him back. "Is fine good enough?" She released the hug first, getting him to slowly release him, as she stepped back to look him in the eye. "I know you have all your gadgets, and all the time you spend with your friends at night, but I know the entry rate is only 2%. And you told me that they are going to grade you harder because this isn't your first time taking it. So I'm worried you could do your best, and still not get in." He interrupted her concern. "Mom, I know what you are saying, but I have to try. This has always been my dream, going to the UA and becoming a hero. I can't worry about failing if I want to achieve my dream. But I can, honey, that's my job as your mother. And I saw how you took it last time, when they told you no. You were devastated, and couldn't eat for a week. Tears began to well in her eyes as she remembered. A hitch was beginning to form in her voice. And you just spent the last year trying to get stronger. So if you put in all that effort just to miss honey, I can't lose you to your dreams. Can't you be a great inventor and so smart? I know Musutech invited you in with a recommendation. And if I fail, I promise I'll take it, Mom. This isn't baseball. I know I won't get a third swing at it. But if I don't try, I know it is gonna eat me for the rest of my life. You know, Koichi sometimes tells me he is envious? That he loves his life, but sometimes he wishes he had taken a chance and gone for a hero entrance exam a second time. Helping people isn't enough. I want to save them. And heroes save people. Izuku couldn't help but leak tears as he put it all out on the table for his mom. He had always known that she doubted him. He didn't blame her for it. She was doing what she thought was best for him. His dreams always seemed a bit ridiculous to anyone who heard it. But he wasn't going to let that get to him. His mom looked deep into his eyes before dropping them. Dang it, you're just like your father. You always know how to convince me you're right. She let out a soft chuckle along with the tears. Come on, Mom, don't be mean. At least I'm actually right. He joked about his father's nature to both their amusement. A few more words, and well wishes were exchanged before Izuku Midoriya left to get more sleep. He knew he would have to tell her everything, good or bad, about the exam once he got back. Izuku was really hoping it was good. He finished up his breakfast, and put away the dirty dishes before finally finishing his tool tinkering. All the pouches were filled, and buckles were secure, meaning he was ready. He wasted time looking online about the previous day's news events, taking amusement in how Empty Lady was getting flack for using the assistance of local vigilantes to draw her opponents into more convenient locations. Apparently, the hauler, which always brightened his day, had been seen luring some odd villain that could shoot chunks of ice into a park where Empty Lady stomped him into the ground, while she was also seen mocking his partner in crime, Popstep. He debated asking Kazuho about it, but decided against it. She was moody enough, as it was. The text telling of her arrival was welcomed shortly after. He rushed down to see her van sitting idle in the parking lot. Thanks a lot for this. I know you were up late, you didn't have to do this, he told her, as he opened the door to her van. She rolled her eyes behind her glasses. Yeah, but I wanted to. Now get in the car, it's getting cold in here, Greenhorn. She gestured to him while he quickly complied. Putting his gear behind him, he buckled up, and the duo made their way to the UA campus. Looking at his senpai, he quickly noticed that she was wearing something familiar. But not familiar with her, but rather with his other senpai, Koichi. So, when's the wedding? He let out a joke, as they continued the silent entry into traffic. Kazuho looked confused, looking around the car. What the hell are you talking about? He gestured towards her hoodie while smiling. That isn't your old All Might hoodie. That is Koichi's special one he wears out. It is obvious with all the repairs he has put into it. Blushing, trying to hide it behind the sleeves of said hoodie, Kazuho stuttered out. So? What does it have to do with the wedding? You definitely stayed the night, didn't you? Izuku teased his senpai. She was usually the one teasing him, so this was some nice payback. So what, Greenhorn? She screeched, adding on his nickname, as she tried to focus on the road. He sat back into the van seat. Finally, you guys have been dancing around each other since before you brought me into the gang. His smile softened. I know you two will be happy together. Kazuho's face turned red, as she did her best to keep her eyes on the road, and not bury her head into her chest. Thank you? She finally stuttered out. No problem, senpai. Just ask Koichi if I will be one of his groomsmen or not. She glared at him for as long as she risked it. Shut your mouth, Greenhorn, or else I'll make you a bridesmaid. You'll even have to wear a dress. She threatened him. While it did unnerve him for a second, months and months of handling her, and Koichi had left him sharp to make easy comebacks. As long as I'm at the wedding, I'll be the flower girl if you asked me. I should make you walk the rest of the way. She was obviously beyond done with him. I'm sorry, I'll be good. It was too cold to risk it, especially carrying his things. And he knew she would do it too. Things were quiet for a few minutes, as she drove through the city, but the morning traffic she had predicted the night before led to boredom, and got one of them talking again. So, how you feeling? Nervous or what? Kazuho asked, looking at him through the sides of her glasses. Izuku felt himself sink into the seat, as he let out a sigh. I keep telling myself that I'm not. That this is going to be easy. He explains. Which it will be. You have to consider yourself lucky, Greenhorn. Unlike the rest of the brats in there, you have legit combat experience. You have actually fought people, and won. Robots are no big deal, right? Kazuho tried to encourage him. People are easy. They can make mistakes, you can talk to them, and most of them aren't made of metal. He pointed out the biggest concern regarding the test. Yeah, but isn't your goal just to fry most of them? You don't have to punch that hard to do it. She pointed out right back. I know, it's just this is my last shot. I don't get to try again with the UA. If I don't get in, I'm stuck working with both of you if I want to help people. He hadn't meant that as an insult, but she took it as one. Hey, don't get snippy with me. Pop Step and Crawler have been assets to this city for years. What's so bad about being like us? She asked, refocusing on the road, as the flow of traffic started to pick up. Izuku was quick to respond. I don't mean it like that. You guys are awesome, and the fact you are letting me tag along with you to help people has been great. I learned a lot, and am super thankful. But I mean, the law still treats us like criminals. I mean, we have been pretty lucky, you know? You guys have connections, and stuff that means we can get away with this for the most part. That could end any minute. We tried to save someone, and we end up in jail. And I don't want it to be like that for me. When I save people, I want to be able to do it knowing I can save someone else the next day. This was the crux of why Izuku couldn't settle for being a vigilante. He knew his mom, and his friends wouldn't mind if he did, but he wouldn't. He knew he could do a lot more for the world than helping in the shadows. He wanted to be a pillar, a symbol of peace for all those who cannot be heroes themselves. He needed to be able to go anywhere from Hokkaido to Nagasaki, and be just like his hero, and tell them not to worry because I am here. Thankfully, Kazuho already knew about this side of him. I know, kid, I know. She said in a soft voice that she wasn't sure he heard. They were close to Yue, obvious by the gaggle of middle schoolers in different uniforms walking the sidewalk. Finding a nearby parking space, she began to park, as she spoke to him again. You know Green, you know Izuku. She caught his attention by using his name, me, and Koichi are rooting for you. We could never get to be pro-heroes, but that doesn't mean you can't. We know you will. You have been through too much with us to make us think otherwise. So I don't care what those kids do. I don't care what this school will do. I care about what you will do. And I know you will knock it out of the park. Izuku was gleaming at the kind words by his friend. He knew she cared, but not like this. Wow, Kazuho, thanks for that. You really are. His words were stopped by her continuing her statement. If you do fail, just know I'm making you stick to your promise of being my flower girl. Hear me, Greenhorn? She gave him a smug smirk, throwing in a little fuel to his fire that he didn't need. Izuku left the car, and slammed the door shut behind him. He seemed like he was going to storm off before turning to the car window with a smirk. Okay then, Mrs. Holler. He was grinning at that one, as he left to go to the exam room. His name is Crawler. He heard her yell, obviously having rolled down the car window. He kept grinning. What did she get all mad about? His attention was interrupted by a boy who had been walking on the sidewalk, as he left the car. The three things he noticed about him was how he was fairly tall, had large teeth, and was wearing a coat that sleeves seemed way too big on him, but somehow fit perfectly. Izuku let out a chuckle. I was just teasing her about her boyfriend. He told him honestly. So is she like your sister or cousin, or the guy asked, still looking at her in the van. The pink hair was probably confusing him, as to why she was driving him this early in the morning. She's my friend. And I guess technically my boss? Izuku added, figuring since his cover story did have him manage Pop Step. The tall boy shrugged it off, and looked at Izuku for the first time in earnestness. Wow, you have a big bag. What are you hiding in there? Success. Izuku tried to sound cool, and hoped it worked. Anyway, I'm Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you. He stuck out his hand. The boy took it. Hand to Siro. But seriously, your bag is ridiculous. Why do you need so much stuff? Siro asked him. Izuku just shrugged it off. Support gear. He was just a little more specific. Siro cocked an eyebrow, but seemed to realize that he wasn't going to be super specific. Well, I hope that means you're prepared. I think I am, but I have no idea. He honestly told him. I don't think anyone is really prepared for this. This is the top hero school in the country for a reason, Izuku pointed out. Kazuho's words could only encourage him so much when he was staring down reality. Shiro could only nod in agreement. The two boys kept walking towards the entrance, but not before Shiro asked a question. Izuku wasn't too surprised. So what school do you go to? Cause that seems super casual. He was alluding to the fact that Izuku was wearing a plain black tee under a dark green sports coat with a pair of black pants that looked like they had more give than the standard uniform wear. It looked nice, but it was clearly not a uniform. Deciding it really didn't matter, Izuku told the truth. Well, this is kinda embarrassing. I actually graduated locally from Aldera Junior High last year. To tell you the truth, this is my second time trying to take the UA entrance exam. If Shiro was going to start something over it, he could handle it. You went full-on Ronin? Shiro asked, looking more surprised than mocking. He looked at the school, and back to him. Crap, the exam must be super hard. You look smart, and stuff. He had become nervous with this information. Not wanting to discourage him, Izuku patted him on the back. Hey man, you don't need to freak out. The writing isn't that bad. It's just that I wasn't ready for the practical. It was my fault really. He admitted to his own mistakes. He had tried for too long to let his brain do all the work. Shiro gritted his teeth. He still didn't like the sound of that. He was still nervous. Izuku noticed how his new companion was feeling, and was getting ready to assure him when he saw calm come over Shiro's face. His expression steeled over. I have worked too hard for this to act like a wimp now. If this test is too hard, I just gotta go down swinging. His mantra to himself ended, and he looked towards Izuku. Don't you agree? Izuku couldn't help but smirk at the burst of confidence he had shown off. It was the exact sort of thing he was telling himself. 100% we have to go plus ultra. He threw in the motto of the school, and shot out his fist in front of him to show he was being serious. To his surprise, Shiro misunderstood him, and gave him a fist bump. Yeah, plus ultra. With that, the two boys were ready to take the exam. Izuku left his new friend to go find his seat in the auditorium when they were going to first assemble. He was sitting near the top of the assembly, in his own sections of those who seemed to be obvious misfits, and oddities of those entering the exam. He saw Shiro take a seat far below him, and scanned the crowd to see if he knew any more faces. Two caught his eye. The first was a kid that looked way too much like Ingenium for him not to be the little brother he talked about. He had only met the hero twice, though it seemed like he and Koichi were old pals. But each time it left him with the impression of how cool he was. Not to disparage him, but his little brother wasn't giving off that vibe. The second was his childhood friend Katsuki Bakugo, or, as he called him, Kaken. The aura of fuck you, and his spiky blonde hair could be recognized a mile away. He was glad he didn't have to interact with him for now, mainly because he was a negative Nancy. Or, as Kazuho would put it, a giant asshole. It had taken him literally saving his life from a sludge monster while in costume to prove to him that, yes, he could be a hero one day. And that had just gotten him a "why the fuck did you do that? I didn't need your help, you fake-ass hero." But with him, he just assumed he was embarrassed. And Koichi called Kazuho a tsundere. President Mike began to go into his spiel about welcoming everyone, and explaining how the practical would work. He kept an eye on it to make sure that they weren't making a big change to it, but the standard 1, 2, and 3-point robot targets with the 0-point lurking stayed the same. Ingenium's brother had made sure to clear that up while trying to admonish Yue for their lackadaisical explanation, while also calling out Kaken for being an angry hedgehog. Okay, so he didn't actually say those words, but he overheard one of the fellow misfits around him make the comparison, and he thought it was hilarious. Even if it wasn't that accurate. The written exam came first for him, and went about, as well, as Izuku predicted it would. He had been in cram classes for the last few months, so knowledge on the subjects came easy. It also helped that the topics covered, while not the same as the previous year's test, were in the same ballpark. He didn't recognize anyone near him, so he focused on doing the best he could with the test. It was a margins game at this point, and if he ended up on the edge of making the cut or not, he wanted everything working for him. Leaving the testing room, and heading to the lockers, he felt confident he had done everything he could for the exam. While he had realized quickly he wasn't taking the exam with anyone he knew, he was pleased to see Shiro in the locker area, preparing to leave for his location. "How'd you do?" he asked, once he saw Ciro looked ready to go out. He noticed his oddly shaped elbows, and assumed it had something to do with his quirk. "Good enough, I think. I just have to be awesome on the exam, you know?" his new pal admitted. "So many fucking extras, get out of my way." A loud voice was heard making his way to the exit out of sight. Ciro's face grimaced, as he realized something. "Hey Izuku. Are the people we took the written part with the ones we take the practical with?" he asked Izuku, who was busy getting his gear out of his bag at this point. Izuku could only nod. "Yeah, they do. Is something the problem?" Though he already had an inkling of what it was. Ciro let out a long sigh. "Man, that means that guy calling everyone extras is gonna be there. You know he actually asked the proctor if we were taking the real test?" He shook his head. "Ridiculous. I hope I don't have to deal with him while I'm trying to pass." Izuku put his boots on, making sure they were set to the default mode. "If you want to avoid him, just don't go towards the explosions." "Do you know him?" Ciro was surprised by the advice. Izuku was wondering how to put this. He could just say everything he knew about Kaken, but it kinda wasn't fair to him. Ciro should make his opinion based on what he sees, not on what he says. Yeah, he was an underclassman at Aldera. He thinks he's gonna be the best and well, no one has proven him otherwise. He decided that was a safe compromise. Ciro shook his head, and noticed Izuku putting on a very unique belt. From what he could see, it had 4 pouches in the front, 3 of them the size of a pant pocket, and the other seeming like it was fit for a large can. On the back he assumed there were another 4, but the one peeking from behind his hip opposite of the can pocket seemed very wide. "So is this the support gear you were talking about?" He noticed a pair of gloves peeking out the bag. This was a lot of support gear. Must have been expensive. He couldn't help but wonder what the hell was going on with his fellow entrant. A Ronin with a bunch of gear? Izuku had to nod. "Yeah, raw materials for this kind of stuff aren't cheap. Fortunately my boss has a friend that owed me a favor, and paid for most of it." He was really lucky that Captain had mellowed out since Koichi and Kazuho first met him. Ciro first thought about how it must be nice to have a rich benefactor, but the term raw materials caught his eye. "Raw?" he asked out loud in a wondering tone. "Like you made this stuff from scratch?" Izuku nodded. "Yeah, most of it is my designs too. The only stuff I don't buy is the medical supplies and the rope. Only reason I can use these in the exam," he explained. Ciro's eyes lit up in understanding. It was obvious Izuku had some sort of intelligence or technology quirk. He decided to make a joke about something he said though. "Yeah, I never need to worry about rope." A small piece of tape dispensed from his elbow, and he plucked it off. "This always works in a jiffy." He grinned. Izuku finally had an answer to what was going on with the elbows, and thought it was super useful. He was a little like Kamui Woods, and had great potential in mobility. His ability to save people from far distances was a huge bonus, along with his ability to capture villains. He wondered about the actual strength of the tape, knowing it looked durable, but wondering how much force it could withstand. It also meant Ciro had to have significant upper body strength in order to succeed, which seemed like something he knew considering the obvious arm muscles, and lack of distinctive leg muscles. It was too bad that he was limited to only his elbows judging from his physique. If he had some on his knees that could give him a great amount of flexibility in what he could do, and could give him dozens of tactical opportunities his current quirk didn't offer. But it was rude to point out why someone's quirk could be better, like if he talked about how his mother's quirk had way too many limits to be that useful, despite how cool it was. Ciro stood there, catching bits and pieces of his mumbling, and was equally impressed and disturbed. He liked being complimented, and had figured Izuku to be a genius, but this quick breakdown of his abilities, and mocking his chicken legs was offsetting. "Dude, you don't need to tell me my life story." He put an end to the muttering which made Izuku blush red in embarrassment. "Ah man, I did it again. I'm sorry, I know it's creepy and all." He was adjusting something on his belt, and 2 previously hidden hooks appeared. Through a previously unseen slip in the glove's wrist area, they were attached to the belt. "It's just I get way too invested in quirks, and what they can do. I mean, it helps me understand things in a fight, but it also has made a few people think I'd be too good at being a villain, you know?" It was one of Kaken hanger-ons that made this observation that had made him so self-aware of it, especially when it was so true. Zero seemed to think about it. Yeah, I guess it would be. But you're one of the good guys, so I don't have to worry about that. In a mutter under his breath, he continued. I guess I need to worry about leg day though. Izuku chuckled at the self-deprecation. We all need to worry about leg day. He pulled down on his belt 2 previously hidden hooks, and attached the gloves he pulled from his bag to them. He didn't need to put them on just yet, he could wait until they were at the exam site. Well, there's no point wasting our time here. We're both ready to rock this. See you at UA the first day? He asked Zero with a smirk. Zero pulled out his phone real quick. We don't need to wait that long, buddy. Let's exchange numbers, we can maybe hang out before then. You are a pretty cool dude, Midoriya. You too, Zero. He pulled out his phone, and the two of them exchanged numbers. With a quick set of goodbyes, the two new friends went their separate ways to the buses that would take them to the practical exam. The bus ride had been dominated by a few loud voices on the bus, which gave him a few tells. One muscle-bound boy was challenging another person who matched his physique, but he seemed more interested in making sure his candy bars didn't get smushed. Another was a very obnoxious blonde guy who thought he was better than everyone else, saying he could be a better them than they were, which Izuku took as a clue to his quirk. He saw a few of the more frail-looking people realize that they might be out of their league, which a few others, mainly the pink girl with horns, a tall guy who looked like a tiger, and a fiery orange-haired guy with a burned scar on his hand, were doubling down on how they'd do. He had a leg up on everyone else because he knew that there was no countdown, so, as soon as he got off the bus he pointed himself towards the entrance while putting on his gloves. He also began to stomp the ground with both feet in an almost ritualistic manner, which caught the attention of a few people. The tiger guy wandered up to him, looking at his gear and odd actions with a cocked eyebrow. Yo, you okay? Did the stress get to ya? Nope. Izuku was quick to respond, wanting to hear the second President Mike announce the start of the exam. Just getting ready? He kept stomping on the ground, building energy. I'm guessing shock absorption then? Your quirk, I mean. The tiger guy seemed like a decent dude, but he wasn't in the mood to make friends like he had with Zero earlier. No. But you have the right idea. He hoped this guy did well. Secretive, huh? I hope that means you can handle yourself. I hope I don't steal too many of your kills. He flexed his claws to show off his strength. He looked at the claws, along with the rest of the guy, and shrugged. If you can take down that many robots with claws like that. He was being honest with the assessment. He would probably do fine against 1-pointer, and could take out a few 2-pointers, but they would be useless against 3-pointers. And you had to take down 3-pointers, or get a ridiculous amount of rescue points, to have a chance of success. The tiger guy growled a little bit at the insult. Watch me. He puffed his chest. Izuku took a minute to adjust his belt. Sorry, I plan on being busy. He almost had time to enjoy the tiger guy's smile at the comeback, but all of a sudden he heard President Mick's voice booming. Alright, get going. With that, Izuku clenched his toes to activate the spring in his boots. With all the energy he had built up in them with his stomping, he exploded towards the entrance, and at a 1-pointer right by the door. Just as Mike was explaining to everybody that there were no countdowns in real life, his group watched as Izuku smashed the head of the 1-pointer with his fist. Izuku shook his hand, punching metal hurt. He made sure to activate his gloves batteries, and then began running to the 2-pointer out of sight of the now rushing crowd. He had business to attend to. He rushed the 2-pointer, ducking a slow attack by its arms, and a barrage of 2nd-volt level punches to its core. The foe took a little physical damage, but the electric shocks were enough to shut it down. Proceeding to pull a swim move on the robot, he ran by it. The tiger guy suddenly ran past him, having caught up, and began to maul the 1-pointer that was on Izuku's left. Then, in a flash, he leaped towards the other 1-pointer on Izuku's right, mauling that to take it out of the game. The 3-pointer in the area then revealed itself coming from behind the corner of the building, trying to take out the tiger quirked boy. Izuku began to gallop with the extra spring from his boots, and jumped over him to drop-kick the 3-pointer's arm away from the unsuspecting exammate. Quickly getting up, Izuku notched up his gloves to a level 3 volt, and smashed a pair of wild blows at the 3-pointer. It was enough to knock it out of the game. The tiger guy looked scared at the unforeseen foe that had almost taken off his head, and was pleased to see Izuku had taken care of it. Spend less time on each robot, but good form. Izuku complimented him. watch out for the big ones. Izuku couldn't hang around, as he began to run down an empty street to find new foes. Thankfully the tiger guy didn't follow, since he didn't want to compete against him right now. He was annoyed when the next robot he came across, a 2-pointer, was destroyed by someone's tail attack, but made up for it by knocking the lights out of a nearby 1-pointer. Finding another one just around the corner, he destroyed it with a level 2 punch. Izuku kept running down a street, and found 4 robots with a pair of girls fighting them. The pink girl was flinging what looked like acid at a 3-pointer, and another was trying to headbutt a 2-pointer into submission. Izuku took his chance, and quickly ran up on the other 2-pointers in the area, knocking him out with a flurry of low-volt punches. The 4th robot, a 1-pointer, was coming towards the girl using her head as a weapon, and was quickly destroyed by a wide acid attack by the pink girl. Izuku was prepared to run, as the area had been cleared, but a yelp of the headbutt girl surprised him. He heard the pink girl yell out sorry, as she fled the scene, and he locked his eyes on the girl who was covering her chest area. There was an obvious degradation of her clothes, with some skin around her neck showing. It was obvious what had happened, especially as she saw him looking, and yelled, "What the fuck do you want, pervert? I'm guessing the pink girl destroyed your shirt, right? You can't let that stop you from fighting." He could afford to give her a quick pick-me-up. No reason to see her lose because she is embarrassed. "Not just my shirt," she admitted, completely embarrassed. "So look the fuck away, pervert." Izuku instantly understood what happened, and blushed, looking away. Still, it wasn't fair she had to cut her exam short a few minutes into it. An obvious solution, much to his chagrin, popped in his head, and he knew he had to follow through. Taking off his gloves really quickly, he quickly removed his shirt to her loud yelp. "What the fuck are you thinking? Are you really gonna pull something here?" He turned around, and walked towards her with his shirt in hand before tossing it to her. "Just put this on. You don't deserve to fail over this." As soon as it landed by her, he turned around, making sure the coast was clear. "Just be quick. I don't have all day." The girl quickly realized what he was doing, and decided to ask no questions. Quickly discarding her clothing, she discreetly pulled on Izuku's shirt. As soon as she made sure she was decent, she looked up to see him slam the top of the can on the ground, and began to shake it rapidly. A 3-pointer was just coming around the corner. "What are you doing?" she asked, obviously confused. "Are you done yet?" he asked back before chucking the tall can at the incoming robot. It managed to land right in front of it, and exploded, as a blast of foam covered the robot, and shrapnel embedded into it. Izuku followed it up by running at the blinded robot, and slammed his foot against it. With unexpected force, the robot stumbled back, and fell over, defeated. "What the hell was that thing?" She stood up, and walked towards the defeated robot covered in foam. Izuku trusted she had put on his shirt, and ran back to get his gloves. Supposed to be a fire extinguishing device, but a decent grenade in a pinch. "Better get moving." She nodded at him, as she prepared to run south of their location. "Thanks for that. What happened to your stomach?" she noticed, as he stood back up from picking up his gloves. Izuku looked down, seeing the scar was visible. This was why he didn't like being shirtless, why he wore the shirt he was going to use in practicals in the morning. It was a healing scar, but a bit jagged, and a few inches long above his belly button. He didn't mind her concern, but now was not the time. "A villain attacked me last year, and I got better. You can keep the shirt. Good luck," he quickly explained, and left, knowing there was more he had to do. He left her in the dust, as he began to worry about all the robot wreckage he was coming across. He managed to stumble across a 2-pointer that he took down with his gloves, but he was getting worried. He knew what was coming soon, and 15 points were not enough. He listened for combat, and rushed to the scene, knowing he might have to steal some kills. It took him a minute, but he came across a gathering of students challenging robots. He knew he had to be quick in doing this, so he looked for the people dealing with mismatches, and decided to exploit them. A boy with long purple hair was trying to fight a 1-pointer, but doing poorly, so Izuku had no guilt about knocking it out with a level 3-volt punch from behind. He charged the 3-pointer the meathead from the bus ride was trying to take out, and knocked it over with a spring-loaded dropkick. He followed it up with a pair of volt punches to make sure it stayed down. The meathead complained, "Hey, don't steal kills. This is to get into the UA, so I can make friends later," Izuku pointed out, as he quickly left the scene, but not before taking out a hapless 1-point robot strolling by. He was getting worried, 20 points, and his right glove was probably down to 15% charge. He could also hear in the distance the rumblings of a large mechanical creature, no doubt the 0-pointer. Looking for robots, he thought he could grab a few points when he saw the candy bar guy surrounded by all 3 types of robots. As he rushed towards the scene, however, the guy began to lash out at the robots, and made quick work of them. Izuku saw another pair of 2-pointers in the area that looked freshly defeated, and realized how much this guy had been cleaning up. He was about to turn away when he saw the candy bar guy collapse. Knowing that wasn't a good thing, he ran towards the guy. "You okay, man? Too much sugar? Too tired?" The guy managed to spit out, staying on hands and knees around the carnage he had made. Izuku figured it must be a side effect of his quirk, sugar-eating boost. It did explain the candy bar care. He figured the best thing to do was to get him out of dodge. He ignored the voice in his head saying he was only doing this for the rescue points, as he helped the guy stand up, and directed him to relative safety in the entryway of a nearby building. The 0-pointer was on the field, and chaos was all around, so Izuku could only remind the candy bar guy to look out for danger, and he left him there to keep fighting. He was rewarded by a pair of 1-pointers that he rushed towards, taking care to take them out with only left-handed level 2-volt punches. It took a few punches for each, and one of them got a decent swipe on his ribs, but they went down for the count. He kept running towards the 0-pointer, but to its side, still looking for any enemies. His gloves were low on charge, and he knew he would have to go to his belt to make it the rest of the way. 2-pointers drifted in front of him, and he pulled from 2 pouches 2 different items. The first was a smoke bomb that he deployed, blinding the machine from his doings. Then, he grabbed the rope in his back pouch, and made a quick, but large lasso. Listening to the machine's movements in the pepper cloud, he waited until he knew where it was going to escape it from, and threw his lasso there. Perfectly timed, one of its legs stepped into the lasso, and Izuku pulled it tight. The machine was off-balanced, and when it tried to step with a different leg, the one other leg buckled, as it couldn't support the weight of the machine. As the machine came crashing down, Izuku rushed in, and delivered a shockwave kick to its center, putting it out of commission. He freed his lasso from the robot, and began running again. He had no idea how much time he had left, but he needed to find something else. A 1-pointer was found running from something, maybe another examiner, but Izuku quickly finished him a level 4-volt punch, draining its battery. Overkill, but he could only use it for 1 punch. He was now behind the chaos of the 0-pointer, in its trail of wreckage, and ironically in the safest place you could be. He wasn't the only person with that idea, as he noticed a few people there with him. Some of the few remaining robots had fled here, as well, and were paying the price. Izuku focused on one of the guys who was running from a 3-pointer he couldn't beat, and saw his shot. Using his lasso to keep the robot in place, he pulled himself with a boost from his right foot towards the robot, and knocked it out with a level 4-volt punch, draining the battery from his right hand. People were watching him after that stunt, but he didn't care. Izuku decided the lasso could wait, as he still had to keep fighting. Desperate to do anything, he reached into a different pouch that had a spike strip ball, as he tossed it in front of another 1-pointer that no one had finished off yet. With one last spring boost with his left foot, he flew towards the robot slowed down by its damaged tire, as he threw a big right hand at the robot. His momentum sent both him and the robot into the ground, but Izuku was able to roll away. Another one down. Now that is time for your entrance exam. Please return to the entrance of the grounds to see any medical treatment, and return to the main building. He wanted to collapse on the ground. He was so tired, he had pushed himself to the limit. But instead, he gathered up his spike strip, and collapsed it back into the ball, and got his lasso, and fitted the rope back in its pouch. He began to stumble towards the entrance, but a few people came around, as they saw how tired he was. He was also getting a few compliments, with other comments. "Dude, your stuff was awesome. The lasso knockout was epic. Where is your shirt, man? That last punch was epic. Is this all deer? You must be crazy smart. That scar isn't from this, is it? You got bruised ribs, those feeling okay? That was hella cool. How many points did you get?" 29. He had managed to get 29 villain points. That was definitely a lot, maybe even more than he expected to get. But it didn't matter because what got people into the UA were the rescue points. He knew he had helped a few people, but how many points was that worth? Especially with the curve they told him he would be facing. Would he get enough? Deku, I thought your boss was the stripper, not you. Where the fuck is your shirt? In spite of himself, Izuku pinched the bridge of his nose. 3 different times since he had gotten back from the exam he had been asked about the shirt. The first 2 were in the locker room, as they saw him put on his sports coat without an undershirt. While the first guy asked about the scar, Zero had the common sense not to bring it up when he noticed it. They had been discussing their villain points, where Zero had a lowly 17 points because Bakuga had been hogging them all during the test. When the subject of rescuing people came up, though, Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. Zero had been using his tape to help people out of sticky situations throughout the exam, including saving someone who couldn't outrun the 0-pointer because of their exhaustion. Izuku was sure he would get major rescue points for that, and now the main hope was that Zero didn't bump him out of the school. Izuku had quickly lied to the 3rd girl saying his shirt was destroyed because she was being nosy, but hid his scar with his coat. Kaken was the 4th person. Zero couldn't help but look a little confused. A stripper? You work for what now? No, she's an idol, Kaken, why do you say the things you do? His focus turned from his new friend to his old one. Could have fooled me, with how she bounces around. But what the fuck happened to your shirt? It is freezing, are you an idiot? TCH. At the end, his childhood friend showed he was at least the tiniest bit concerned for him. Look, someone got reckless, and ruined a girl's top. They needed a shirt so they could continue, so I gave it to them. He quickly explained. Why the fuck were you wasting your time, dumbass? The point of the exam was to beat up the robots, not worry about other fucking people. Bakuga pointed out. Were you so shit you just gave up halfway through, and played wannabe some more? Izuku couldn't help but grin. The exam was over, so it was okay for him to reveal the twist. Actually, Kaken, rescuing people gets you points, as well. They don't tell people about it so they can see if they have a hero's instinct. Both Zero and Bakuga were surprised. Wait, so I might have a chance still? I did save a few people who couldn't outrun the 0-pointer. Zero asked, actually feeling confident. He nodded. Yeah, I figured you had a good shot when you mentioned that earlier. How about you, Kaken, did you help anyone? Izuku politely asked. Fuck off, Deku. I didn't need to save anyone's ass cause I was kicking the enemies. Bakuga had a bit of a blush and embarrassment at seeing how he had likely gotten a 0 in something, even as stupid as rescue points. So, Kaken, how many points did you end up getting? You were taking out the 2 and 3 pointers like they were nothing. Zero tried to steer the conversation to a different place. He quickly realized he made a mistake when Bakuga wrapped a hand around his throat. Deku only gets to fucking call me that because he is too stupid to stop. If you say it again, I will send you soy sauce face. I am Katsuki Bakugu, future #1 hero. Do you understand? Bakugu glared at the boy. While Zero was looking terrified, Izuku let out a long sigh and grabbed Bakuga's elbow. Come on, it's not like he knew your name. Lay off of him. And no, I get it. It was kind of rude. I mean it is I shouldn't have assumed your name, Bakuga sir. Zero was doing his best to maintain survival at this point, but the two of them seemed to relax the tension in him. Slowly, he let go of Zero's neck. Whatever, fucking Deku. I hope you remember that soy sauce face if I see you back here, understand me? Yes, Bakuga sir. Zero had seen the carnage he could do, and didn't want it directed at him. Don't you have some studying to do, Kaken? I know finals are in a few weeks. Izuku interjected. Does it look like I need to do some studying for some stupid-ass lame finals? Bakuga looked almost offended at the statement. If you want to make sure you get #1 in the year, probably. He was honest to him. Bakuga's eyes narrowed before a groan came out of his throat. Whatever, Deku. Get a fucking shirt, no one wants to see you stripping. He waved off the duo, as he left towards his house. Bye, Kaken. He waved him off, and turned to see Zero with a questioning look on his face. What? An underclassman you know? Zero pointed out what he said earlier in the day. Izuku let out a sigh. Yeah, I was trying to be nice, you know, let Kaken make his own impression. Yeah, our parents go way back. We have known each other since we were in the crib. His mom made me watch him to make sure he didn't get into anything stupid cause I was older, and he was the only person I really knew my age, but he always hated that. He gave a quick rundown on their past. Taking a second to think, he sighed. He's probably gonna hound me about how I did, and brag about how well he did when he remembers to do so. My mom likes to joke he's the little brother she is thankful she never had. He joked to Ciro, who began to laugh. That is a good one, man. If I do get enough points to make it, I'm not sure I want to be in the same class as him. He is way too intense. And he called me soy sauce face, like what does that even mean? Izuku shrugged. I don't know, but it probably means he might respect you a little. He calls most people our age extras. Ciro burst out laughing again at the ridiculousness of Bakugo. Then, he thought about something else. He calls you Deku, Midoriya? What does he mean? It means like a puppet, since I always listened to his mom to watch over him. Technically it had a second meaning, but there was no reason to go into that. Ciro scrunched his face. That is kinda lame. I mean, he definitely got the better nickname of the two of you. People call you anything else? My boss calls me Greenhorn, he admitted. Ciro took a glance at Hare. I definitely see why. But you said she was like an idol or something? What the hell? There was definitely a hint of jealousy in his voice. Izuku wavered his hand. I mean, kinda. She is independent, and a lot of her shows are technically illegal since we don't have permits. But she is pretty popular around here, and most people would recognize her. How'd you get that gig? Ciro wondered aloud. Izuku told him the story, as they walked towards the train station so Ciro could go back home, and agreed to catch up once the results came in. Seeing him off, Izuku rushed home while ignoring even more people asking about his shirtlessness. Thanking the heavens his mom was out shopping at the moment, he put his gear back in the closet, and put on a regular shirt. He knew his mother too well to mention helping a girl his age in need. It was Friday, which meant Pop Step had her duties to upkeep. Izuku had managed to get her a legit gig singing at Mangalore Park in their weekly Friday evening entertainment event, but that wasn't enough for Kazuho. So she decided to have a surprise show near the old warehouse district that Izuku strategically leaked on social media to her supporters. As Koichi was at his day job, he was unavailable to assist, so he found himself running both the technical and security side of the show. He had to make sure her speakers were running, her backing tracks were in the right order, and to make sure the electronics stayed working, while also making sure local police or heroes that didn't support Pop Step were seen in advance so they didn't get arrested. Again. He had been super lucky that he didn't get processed, as one of their connections in the police department made sure they were just waved off with a warning. Thankfully it had only been a show, and not the other half of their activities, or else there would be no saving them. Back to his gear, he was spread thin, and getting worried. He was lucky that a few of the older fans in the cheer section were wise to the need to avoid legal repercussions, and were helping him with keeping watch, but it meant he had to keep tabs on them. Also, a few of the new tracks Kazuho had downloaded for her to use were not properly named, so it was a race of transferring them to a different device to listen to in order to determine what song it was. It wasn't too out of the ordinary, so he was determined to see the event through. Pop Step was a little past halfway in her plan set, advertising her Mangalore appearance by hinting at her singing one or two new songs that made Izuku groan in the short term. They were little ditties that she was proud of, but he didn't think were ready. He was caught up with trying to figure out what they could do in the 4 or 5 hours in the interim to spruce those songs to performance ready when he felt someone grab his shoulder. Immediately worried it was the police shutting them down, he quickly looked around at his eyes in the crowd to see why no one had warned them. He was thankful to see that it was in fact one of the eyes coming to talk to him. He saw who it was, and fought the blush immediately. She wasn't part of the old guard of fans, but she was just as enthusiastic as the rest of them. She had to have been about his age, and was one of the prettiest girls he had ever seen. She was easy to recognize between her mature composure and tall ponytail. They sent me to warn you, MT Lady is coming this way. It appears she heard the performance in giant form, and has decided to do something about it. He nodded, trying to keep his composure before sputtering out, thanks. Do you know where I'm from? He had to make sure they had a good exit plan. She is coming by car from the west side of the city. Probably will be here in 2 or 3 minutes. Getting his mind straight, he immediately went back to the mix, easing it into silence. He could feel Kazuho glare at him, but she was smart enough to know what that meant. Alright my lovely fans, it appears trouble is on the way. I have to bounce my way out of here. But remember, I will be performing a full set tonight at Mangalore Park. Don't miss the fun. With that, she bounced off the old warehouse platform she had been using as her stage and jumped to the roof. Izuku quickly packed all the electronics into the back bag while grabbing the 2 speakers, one with each arm. The girl saw him grab the heavy setup and looked concerned. "Hey manager, do you need some assistance?" she asked politely, looking ready to grab one of the speakers from him. Thank you for the offer, but I can't. You know, idols want their privacy, and all." He was quick to make an excuse, even if it was a half-hearted one. "Oh well, thank you for assisting Pop Step in all her work. I wish I could attend tonight, but my family is having dinner together." "Oh, I understand. No big deal. I have to get going so I don't get stopped by the police, but I'll tell you how much you support her." Her smile made him want to melt. "Oh, thank you again, manager. Tell Pop Step I wish her best of luck." She waved to him as he began to backpedal away. He just wildly nodded. "Yeah, no problem. Hope your family dinner goes well." And with that, he began to run quickly the 2 blocks to Kazuho's van. Said girl jumped off the roof just as he was crossing the street to it, landing right by the side door already out of her idol costume. She opened it for him as he quickly put away the speakers and reached to take off the bag he had been carrying. "Hope your family dinner goes well?" she snarky asked, making Beam finally blush. Shut up. I was being pleasant. He knew this was going to be her go-to joke for weeks. He couldn't believe how much of a dork he had been. Yes, and it wasn't the fact she is a total bombshell that got you flustered. Seriously, I sometimes wish I had a figure like that. Kazuho thought about the fan's impressive figure. Izuku put away the bag. "I'm sure Koichi loves you just the way you are." He wasn't sure if this was a girl thing about being jealous of someone else's form, but he figured it was. This was not the first time she had made the complaint, and he was happy he had the perfect response for it. She gritted her teeth. "You know us girls can care about what we look like for ourselves, and not just a guy, you greenhorn idiot." She yelled at him while slamming the car door shut, making him jump back to avoid getting hit. It looks like that was not the perfect response. "Oh, of course you can. I shouldn't have assumed. I'm just saying that. Well, you wouldn't be you if you looked like a bombshell. You might have a really shitty personality, or be super arrogant, or not do heroic stuff. I think that you are the best, you know?" He tried to argue against why fitting the male definition of beauty was a bad idea, and why she was perfect, as she was. "Damn straight I know that, I just said sometimes." She giggled as she walked around the car. "And you agree that she is a bombshell?" Izuku paled at the realization. No, it's just you called her a bombshell, and I wanted to make sure you understood what I meant, and I wanted to use a specific example so you would visually understand the metaphor. And I know she is very attractive, but that isn't all that I look for in a girl. I also look for things such as a kind heart, and someone who is gentle and supportive, and she does at least seem the sort, so maybe that is why I get all flustered around her. But it isn't a big deal, cause this is his denial had gone into a full-on muttering storm, and Kazuho was having none of it. "Yada yada yada, you got a crush, but you're a coward who doesn't plan on doing anything about it?" she analyzed, as got into the driver's seat. "Am I right?" He was embarrassed by her words, as he got into the passenger's seat. "I didn't say I have a crush or anything. I just said she was attractive, and seemed nice." "Hey, most guys get a crush after seeing someone attractive," she pointed out. Letting out a sigh, she started the van, and got them out of their parking spot. Whatever. You'll probably get a new one once you get into the UA. Anyway, I promised the people new songs, and I want to make sure they are perfect. I say we head back to my place to finish them, and then get ready for tonight." Thankfully that the conversation was over, Izuku happily agreed. "Sure, and I want to start with the chorus. You are definitely hijacking them from American pop. They don't sound right at all in Japanese. So I was thinking about that, and I'm thinking I will just sing it in English. Then we have to change the lines before and after the chorus so they fit better," Izuku complained. And that was how the hours came to occur, with the duo perfecting the lyrics of the 2 new songs, and filling in the backing music to fit the new timing the songs needed. Koichi arrived from work, and helped with the last touches while Izuku finalized the details of the Mangalore show with its organizers. They left Kazuho prepared to take on the big show with a new set list that was sure to make the crowd go wild. The three of them waited patiently, as the first musician got the crowd interested, a local electronic music DJ whose vibes were more vibrant and happy than what the popular electronic was. They were definitely enjoying his music, and the guy who looked not much older than Koichi looked happy at how everyone was enjoying things. They made sure to focus on getting Pop Step ready, but when the time came to set up their set, Izuku asked Koichi to handle it. It was no big deal for him, he had done it before Izuku had joined the group. He waited for the DJ to get out of the zone to walk up to him. Yuki Hayashi? Hi, I'm Izuku Midoriya. I represent Pop Step, and I have to say, you make incredible music. He held out his hand. Hayashi looked him up and down before shaking it. Thank you, Midoriya. I have to say, you are rather young to be representing someone. No offense, but you were probably in elementary school when I first heard of Pop Step. Izuku shrugged. Well, I kind of fell into this job, but I am making sure I do my best to help her succeed. Though I haven't heard of you before, no offense. How long have you been making music? He pried into his past, seeing what he would find. Technically for about a decade, but it was only in the last year I got serious about it. People seem to like what I've made, but I think I've only gotten lucky. Izuku shook his head. No, you have a lot of talent. The first song you played, I think you called it You Say Run, was amazing. It made me feel like I could do anything, you know. Hayashi obviously appreciated the compliment. Thanks, I've been tooling with that track for years. His face changed quickly, however, into a more serious and business-like expression. It's not for sale, if that is where Midoriya is going. He quickly shook his head. No. I wouldn't ask that. That song is clearly yours. I wouldn't ask even if Pop Step could sing to it. No, I was going to inquire on any unreleased material you were interested in selling. Unreleased only? The DJ looked surprised at that request. Well, if you have played it, then it is yours? At best, we would be doing a remix or cover, which isn't what Pop Step does. We would credit you, of course, but we don't want to deal with anything messy like royalties in the long term. I'm assuming this is from experience? Izuku sighed. We had to scrap a Christmas song 2 years ago because the backing track producer made egregious demands after she saw the initial success. So we have to be careful. Hayashi couldn't help but laugh. Such a young man with such wisdom on how the music world works. Do you plan on being a big executive one day, Midoriya? Izuku shook his head. No way. It's just I'm helping my friends with their passion. And if I want to help her, I have to get way too good at this. Hayashi pulled out his phone. I don't know about selling you anything I have made, but I wouldn't mind a collaboration project between myself and Pop Step. Should we exchange numbers so we can discuss this later? I actually have plans that I need to attend to. Izuku agreed and pulled out his phone. Sure, that sounds good. Numbers were quickly exchanged, and their phones were put away. Just to warn you, I might not be the one to get back to you. Is that alright? If that is how it goes, then I can accept that. Hayashi then continued to pack up his things. Hopefully it ring. Izuku looked down at his phone and let out a long sigh. I'm sorry, Hayashi, I have to take this. Have a good day. He waved Hayashi goodbye as he went somewhere a little more quiet. He assumed Hayashi did the same. After the 7th ring, Izuku accepted the call. Izuku, how are you doing, son? The rough echo of his future sounded through his phone. Izuku found himself with a small smile on his face. In spite of all the nonsense that came with it, it was nice hearing his dad's voice. Fine, just at work right now, he told him honestly. Work? Oh yeah, you had that job working for that singer girl. How is that going for you? His dad seemed interested. Pretty good. She is on stage right now doing an event for the city, he told him. Really? That is kind of surprising. The way you told me about her, I thought she was some sort of anti-government weird artsy type. No, she is pretty standard for an idol, and all. She is just doing it her way, and not through the system, Izuku told his father. I see. And it doesn't have anything to do with your other activities now, does it? His dad's voice dropped in the second part, trying to be more secretive, Izuku guessed. What are you talking about? Come on, son, it isn't like this Pop Step girl ever hid the fact she also did vigilante work. All you have to do is Google your name and see the reports. Surprising someone can have so much success with that kind of open secret nowadays. And a future hero like yourself, son, I doubt you're an innocent bystander in her work, am I right? His dad had him dead to rights with that accusation. For the sake of appearances, he couldn't help but deny it. And no way, Dad, I wouldn't. I plan on being a hero. I applied for you. That would be ridiculous. He denied very strongly over the phone. So, it is the entrance exam season already, right? So have you sat for the UA yet? How do you think you did? His dad asked, becoming legitimately interested. Much better, for sure. Last year I only scored 7 points total in the practical. This year I scored at least 29. They have bonuses they add to it, so I don't know for sure. He didn't feel the need to explain the specifics to his father. So what are the odds you think you got in? Plus 200, plus 150 minus 150. His dad began to rattle odds out, which quickly annoyed him. Dad! He forcibly barked into the phone before dropping his voice. Come on, I thought your probation officer would not talk about gambling. Izuku could feel his father's mood drop from beyond the phone. As his dad began to respond, he could feel the embarrassment radiate off his words. Right. Sorry, bad habit. I'm still learning to break it, you know, son? Izuku looked around, making sure no one was around. Dad, you haven't been gambling, have you? You promised Mom you would quit once you got out. I haven't made any bets, son, if that is what you are worried about. His dad was being honest, but he saw he was leaving the wiggle room. There are other ways to gamble besides betting, he pointed out. His dad grumbled, but relented. I spend maybe 1,000 yen a week on scratch-offs. Nothing major, really. Dad, that isn't much more than a six-pack. I've been doing well, honestly. Your mom has been getting my checks on time, right? Izuku's father was quick to point out. Yeah, but it doesn't mean this isn't a bad idea. You need to go cold turkey, Dad. Right now it is just a few yen, but you know it can grow. His dad let out a long sigh. Izuku, I don't have many friends here in Kobe. It's hard on me. I hate my job, but it's the only one that will hire a guy like me at any wage worth anything. Let me have this. His dad pleaded. Izuku understood. Izuku knew his dad hated his warehouse job, that he was lonely, that he wasn't happy with his life. So why haven't you moved back here? There are a lot of jobs out there that will hire, and I wouldn't mind seeing you around. He admitted. Then, being bolder, he added, I think Mom would like to see you more, too. He was worried at how his dad began to laugh. It was a laugh of a man that had been broken, so it was almost haunting to him. Finally, he managed to get a hold of himself, as he explained. That is my dream. I would love to be back where I grew up, with the woman I love, and my fantastic son. But I'm a mess, and Inko deserves better than that. And I know I would mess it up. I still remember all of my bookie's numbers by heart. His dad admitted to him. The man had his demons he was fighting. Even if he was doing it all alone. It was something Izuku respected about his father, even though he had lost to those demons a decade ago. Ever since he got back he had been trying. Maybe that was good enough for now. Alright, Dad. How about we come down in a few weeks if Mom is up to it? Does that sound good? He asked, hoping to hear a positive response. He could feel the smile behind his dad's words. Wonderful. I hope she is. I hope she doesn't mind singing. I know she is working at that karaoke spot near the old beach. I haven't heard her sing in years. I think that would be nice. I think it would be too. He hadn't heard his mom sing in a long time, as well. No one spoke for what seemed like forever, until his dad broke the silence. So you are doing good, right? Happy? Yeah, I am. Izuku responded. I was just calling to make sure, and check up since I knew it was entrance season. So it would be a good bet that my son makes it into the UA this year, wouldn't it? He knew it was a dad joke thing, but he couldn't help but groan. His dad chuckled. I know. Send me a message once you find out if your mom is up to visiting, alright? No problem, Dad. I'm gonna let you get going. I know you said you were at work. Yeah, I suppose I should be doing something to help her. Izuku jokingly commented. Yeah. Good luck, son. Talk to you later. Love you? His dad was very open and earnest with his comments. You too, Dad. Bye. Izuku hung up the phone, hoping his dad didn't notice his obvious dodge. He put away his phone and stretched his shoulders to ease the tension talking to him seemed to cause him. He made his way back to Koichi, as Pop Step was getting into the swing of her set. "What took you so long?" he was asked, as he came walking up behind him, instantly overlooking the laptop to make sure everything was where it needed to be. "I got the number from DJ Hayashi. He is interested in working with us. I tried to see if we could buy some of his tracks to use, but he wasn't interested," Izuku admitted, still focused on electronics. Koichi smirked. "Are you sure you're not meant to be an idol manager?" This was far from the first time he had taken his cover story way past the line of believability. He asked the same thing. His focus drifted from the electronics, and he stared off into nothing in particular. "And my dad called." An eyebrow was raised. "Really? What did he want?" Koichi didn't have the best opinion of Hisashi Midoriya, to put it kindly. "To talk. To see how I'm doing. Normal dad stuff." Izuku blinked a few times, and began to check to make sure the lighting was right on Pop Step. "I said I would ask if Mom wants us to visit him in a few weeks." "A visit?" A sour tone persisted on his friend's comment. "Are you really going to spend the time and money to go to Kobe just to see him? Why can't he come back here?" Izuku could only shrug. "It is what it is. If Mom wants to see him." "Will she?" "Maybe. If I pass, she might be in a good enough mood to go for it." Izuku pondered. Koichi's facial expression shifted, and shifted again, obviously thinking. "Alright then Izuku, you should be getting your results Tuesday, right?" "More or less." "Then how about Wednesday? I take a long lunch, and the three of us celebrate your entry to the UA Heroics course." He sounded pleased with his idea. "Aren't you assuming a lot?" Izuku was painfully aware of how much of a close call it was going to be. The entry rate of the course spoke for itself. You could be in the top 5%, and still not even have a 50% chance of making it. That was why most kids that applied for UA had at least one backup school. But not Izuku. He had to go to the best, or it wouldn't be good enough. It was definitely a fatalistic way of thinking, as his two friends had pointed out. But it was how he was going about it. "Come on, Midnight adores you. Snipe likes your gusto. Eraserhead could have arrested you like 3 different times, but didn't. You have allies in the UA. If it comes down to you or some other brat, you know you have it in the bag." Koichi was definitely lying through his teeth in the end. If it came down to some random kid, and Izuku, he had no shot whatsoever. But Izuku appreciated the effort. "Fine. I know that an outdoor bistro just opened back up. How about there?" "Sounds great. Now quick, she needs the sparklers," Koichi pointed out. In no time flat, Izuku had them in hand, and was standing off stage to discreetly pass them off to Pop Step. Hero stuff came later, he was helping his friends right now. It was Tuesday afternoon, and Izuku and his mother were making katsudon. As they saw it, it was either in celebration or as a pick-me-up. Even though he knew he would be sick to his stomach if he failed. To come so close, and to miss? Thank God he had great friends, and a great family. The only sounds in the apartment was the sizzling of the pork cutlet in the oil, and instrumental music Izuku had stumbled upon. His mom liked them more than he did. "So honey, how did the Musutech interview go?" Izuku gritted his teeth. Yesterday, he had been forced to take an interview with his backup school to show he had the talent to get into their programs despite his gap year. He hadn't really wanted to go, but he knew it would be foolish of him not to. "Good. They seem to like me," he admitted. It would be a fine place for him to go if he didn't plan on becoming a hero. "That's wonderful, honey." His mother bit his tongue, he could tell. He knew she wanted him to go there instead of chasing his dream. Not even stop chasing his dream even, but not risking his life. She was always protective of him. "The mail should be here soon," he noted, as they continued their cooking. Their conversation stayed stop-start, as they continued the cooking process. His text ringtone broke up the monotony. 17 plus 30 rescue equals acceptance into UA. It was from Ciro. He grinned at his friend's good fortune, and quickly began planning a response. His mom got, and half-heartedly looked over his shoulder. "Good news from your friends?" He quickly nodded. "Yeah. Ciro, the guy I told you about from the exam? He got into UA. "That's great for him, dear," his mom responded, as he sent back a congratulation text. "It makes me feel better about my chances too." He said 47 points was good enough for him. "I think I got that much, easily." He tried to have a positive outlook on the situation. Even with the handicap? Something about less giving on rescue points, and she pointed out the flaws in his thinking. He is quiet for a moment. Yes, I do, he said, a little less confident than before. His mom knew better than to push him, so she slowly turned the conversation towards Kazuho and her music. It was still stilted, with his mother asking a question and him giving an answer, but it kept the time going as they finished the dish. They had even gone as far as to set it out on the table when there was a knock on the door. Izuku left everything on the table as he hurried to the door, quickly throwing it open to see a mail carrier who did not share his enthusiasm. She handed him a few letters and wished him a good day, which he only remembered to wish back as he closed the door. He hoped she heard him. He didn't want her to think he was being rude. The top letter was from Yue, so he only gave the other two a cursory glance to make sure they weren't addressed to him. Seeing as they weren't, he simply set them on his mom's side of the table. She looked at him nervously as he stared at the letter in his hand. Well, it wasn't a letter per se. There was a letter inside that would theoretically detail some important information a new student would need to know. But the important thing was with the hologram projection device. He walked slowly towards the wall, carefully opening the envelope, as intended before looking back at his mother. He saw her tense, but nodded in support. Gulping, he pulled out the device and set it to project on the wall. A rat-like creature in a suit appeared on screen, which made his mother yelp, but did little to startle Izuku. He knew who that was. Why, hello there, Izuku Midoriya. It is I, the principal of UA, Nedzu. I have come to tell you of your results on your entry exam into our prestigious hero course. Let me tell you something. I don't think you know how long we questioned the wisdom of letting you take the exam again. On those occasions we have in the past, it was usually because a student was a few points away and showed promise in both combat and being a hero. Never have we let someone who performed so poorly take it for a second time, and to be honest, I didn't think we would. And that is not to get started on your vigilantism. I know you know we know, but it is still something that gives many of us a great pause. We all know that because of your circumstances you don't have the same limitations as your allies in a legal sense. It was still a very touchy subject. But you must have made friends with a few of our staff, whether they wanted you to be or not, and they have seen your incredible growth, as both a potential hero, and as a person. In fact, one of them put it best by saying, the kid has a heroic spirit that won't be killed by a no. It would better serve us to nurture, and not neglect that spirit. And indeed, look at how you have done. 29 combat points, far better numbers than I expected to see from you. While it was clear you only got so far from your gear, a being like myself can appreciate the use of intellect to overcome any other disabilities. Your use of the fire extinguishing device, as a grenade, is the sort of on-the-fly creativity we need in our heroes. But, as you are well aware, even 29 points will not mean you pass our exam. Normally at this point, a student would be surprised with the information of rescue points. But with you, how about we jump right into the numbers? As previously explained, your rescue points would follow under harsh scrutiny, as we did not want you to rely on them to succeed. We identified 3 points in the exam in which you would have earned them, so how about we review them case by case, shall we? The first was the saving of Yase Tarako from a 3-point robot, which would earn the average student 12 points. While I personally did not see you attempting to farm rescue points here, my colleagues questioned your reflex to the attacking robot. A few accused you of the possibility of letting the robot grow near to maximize the impact of the rescue. As such, we agreed to give you 10 of the 12 points. The second is your assistance of Loa Fifita during her unfortunate accident. Your quick thinking allowed her to continue taking her exam while being the sort of selfless we admire in our students. All 7 of the 7 points that could have been rewarded were. Finally, the assistance of examinee Rikido Sato, whose quirk left him tired and in need of help getting to refuge while he recovered, was under review. And to tell you the truth, it did not pass the eye test in my opinion, along with the others. Considering the circumstances, it seemed obvious it was an attempt to game our system to better your chances of acceptance. However, I gave leeway considering your other actions, and saw fit to award you 1 of the 5 points. This totals 18 rescue points, which brings your total to 47 points for the exam. As I am sure you are aware, if you have continued your contact with Hanta Siro, it is a passing grade. Welcome to the UA Heroics course. Balloons and streamers seemed to fill the air behind Nedzu, as the transmission cut out, but he wasn't bothering to pay attention. Izuku was bawling his eyes out. The second he had said 18, it had dawned on him. His mother was by his side, matching his tears, and he heard her words loud and clear. "Oh my God, please forgive me, Izuku. I knew you could always do it. I had to be your doubt since I knew someone had to be it. I couldn't see you get hurt again. But it doesn't matter, honey. You did it. You made it into the UA." He smiled, half-heartedly wiping the tears from his eyes even though they were still coming. He made it into the UA. He was going to be a hero. Izuku knew Koichi was paying, so letting him order for the group was a reasonable request. But he hadn't expected him to splurge with a sushi platter. That is way too much. You don't make that much at your job, do you? He complained about the price. Kazuho stomped on his toes. Why are you complaining? If Koichi wants to splurge, let him. It's not like he has a ton of hobbies to spend money on. She pointed out. Is that supposed to mean something? Koichi quickly asked his girlfriend, who shook her head. No. I'm just saying you don't waste your money on stupid stuff. She clarified her stance. Koichi nodded to the assessment. Well, that is true. Anyway, Izuku, this is a celebration. You got into the top hero course in Japan. If I want to spend money on my friend's success, why can't I? He dawdled for a minute before admitting, and I have been craving good sushi for a while now, but couldn't justify paying for it. Izuku let out a sigh, knowing complaining would get him nowhere. And if he wanted the food in the first place, who was he to deny him? Fine, if it means that much to you, I won't make a fuss. Letting his annoyance extinguish, he eventually gave them a sincere smile. So I guess then I have to thank you for treating us to such a good meal. I didn't ever think to order sushi from here, but if you are shilling out for it, it must be worth it, huh? Koichi's face suddenly grew nervous. I didn't even think that I had never had sushi here. Kazuho's joy at the meal grew sour. Then why did you order it for everyone? I thought you knew it was good. Do you know how many places put sushi on the menu because they can mark it up, and it is downright crap? She pointed out the obvious concern. Izuku couldn't help but defend his friend. Hey, we don't know how good it will be. This place has great food, so why wouldn't the sushi be any different? I would wager you are both correct. My father has a soft spot for this place, and said while the sushi is good, it is a bit overpriced for the quality you get. A new voice interrupted the conversation. They turned to the owner of the voice, who got a good look at the trio for the first time. There was recognition from both sides. Oh my God, your Pop Step and her friends. The teenage girl excitedly pointed out. And you're the girl who tried to help Greenhorn last week when Empty Lady ruined our show. Small world. Kazuho noted. You remember me. That is so cool. I'm such a big fan of your work, Pop Step. The teenager kept fangirling. Izuku wasn't sure what the hell to do. The cute girl from before was right there, and he had no idea what to say. And he knew if he did say anything, Kazuho was definitely going to tease him for it. He wanted to put his head into his hands in frustration, but that would just look weird. You flatter me too much. Kazuho pretended to be humble at the praise. The girl didn't realize this before shaking her head. No, I am. I downloaded all the songs you have put out, and even found your original song Pop Saves the World. I even saw all the movies you've been in at least twice. Everyone at the table had been surprised at that comment. Her film career had been little noted in her community of followers, but this girl seemed to be eager about them. You have? Even Captain Celebrity sets sail? Koichi couldn't believe anyone would sit through that trash twice. It may have been her biggest role, and a special place in their hearts since it was where the trio came together on set, but it was by God awful. The teenage girl was less expressive when she nodded. I thought maybe there was a secret message to it, but it was really shallow in the end. But your role was so cool, it made the captain look less like a jerk, and the part you had in Tokyo Idol Battle 3 was so cool. I don't get why you didn't get another big scene. Rocket Love was kinda fun, but you did kinda phone it in. You played a decent villain though, and the Illegals documentary got me interested in you in the first place, and really showed me how much good there was in the world, even if they had to break the law to do it. Not that what you guys are doing is technically right, after all, you should be focusing on meeting the legal requirements to be heroes, but I understand. Kazuho couldn't help but smile at the girl's enthusiasm. You are totally right, but between us girls, this is more fun. She joked around. Koichi, however, was playing damage control based on one of the girl's comments. Hey, why do you think we are vigilantes with her? I'm just an office worker, and Izuku is just her music manager. The girl cocked her head with a dead eye looking at the man. She was silent for a few seconds, staring him down. Do you really expect me to believe that? Koichi was a little intimidated by her blank expression. Yes? It's really obvious you're the crawler. Koichi couldn't help but be pleased that someone got his name right, as she then pointed at Izuku. And he is your sidekick Greenhorn. Izuku's eyes twitched, Koichi's eyes bulged out, as his cheeks puffed out while Kazuho began to laugh. The teenage fangirl looked confused before her idol explained between laughs. Oh my god, he didn't have a nickname. I just called him that American slang for newbies, but it fits so well. She has a point there, Greenhorn. Koichi teased, as he calmed down from his near laugh. Izuku turned scarlet in embarrassment. I'm not a manager. I just help. I don't have a name. Now she won't ever stop calling me that. Damn right, Greenhorn. I like you, what's your name? She pointed to the girl that had brought her such amusement. Oh, my name is Momo Yaoyorozu. I didn't mean to be rude. The girl gave a slight bow when she introduced herself. Alright then, Yo-Yo, are you busy? I'm sure the platter is big enough for all of us. She invited the girl to the table while quickly giving her a nickname. Yo-Yo? Well, I was just out taking a breather. I have been studying a lot lately. Yaoyorozu gave the offer some consideration. Surprisingly, not to Kazuho, Izuku made an attempt to convince her. While Yaoyorozu, you know what they say about how eating helps brain function, especially fish. We wouldn't mind if you sat in. He was tapping his fingers together, and not looking at her, but his voice came out clear and earnest. Both of his friends saw how red he was, and Koichi was stunned at the initiative. He eyed Kazuho, who gave him a look that told him that he should back them up, and that there was more to the story. Sighing, he piled on. It looks like they don't mind the company. Don't worry about paying, this celebration is on me. Momo was obviously surprised by the effort in their offer, and couldn't help but acquiesce. I guess I don't have anything else to do, and it would be rude of me to reject such a kind offer. She took the open seat between Izuku and Kazuho, still looking a bit starstruck to be so close to someone she admired. I didn't mean to interrupt, I was only walking by when I heard your argument, and I could not help but give my input. It's no problem, it was helpful. Izuku quickly commented on her statement. The other two nodded. It definitely helps to know it will be good, even if it is expensive. Koichi pointed out. It's nice to know I am helping. She clearly looked happy to be of assistance. So, you mentioned this is a celebration. Can I ask what? Are you releasing a new album? Is the speculation true that Crawler and Pop Step have finally begun dating? Are you in another movie? Momo began to list up things she could think of celebrating. Wait, people think we are dating? Koichi was a little surprised that people had speculated that. She was an idol while he, as put bluntly before, had a plain face. You two are dating though. Izuku was quick to point out. I just thought people thought I was her loser leech. He used their quotes of a statement he had no doubt read online at some point. Momo was buzzing in excitement. You mean it finally happened? You two got together? I thought you two looked so good together. I always wondered why you weren't dating sooner. Kazuho shot a glare at Koichi. Because, as much as I love him, he's kinda dumb, and can't see a great thing in front of him. Koichi turned to Izuku for help, but he only nodded. Koichi, you guys should have been dating a long time ago. It was obvious. Not to me. Koichi pointed out. What was left unsaid that Izuku knew was that he felt she didn't like him like that or she could do better than him. It was stupid, but now in the past. Kazuho returned her attention to their interloper. No Yo-Yo, this isn't a celebration of Koichi coming to his senses. This is a celebration for Greenhorn for getting his life together, and finally getting into high school. Kazuho, you make it sound like I was on drugs or something, and I didn't make it into school. Izuku complained. I sort of wondered why you weren't in high school, Greenhorn. You can't be much older than I am, and you seemed more than intelligent enough to succeed in high school. And I doubted you were being taught by private tutors like myself. The teenage girl commented. Please, Yaoyorozu, please don't call me Greenhorn. My name is Izuku Midoriya, so you can just call me Midoriya. She blushed a little. It is rude to call someone a name like that, isn't it? I apologize, Midoriya. So if it wasn't something extreme like that, why are you starting high school late? Izuku got nervous because a pretty girl asked him a question that was embarrassing to answer, but he muscled through it. Well, I didn't make it the first time I applied, so I had to take a year to improve myself so I could get in. And it worked. And if I am not being nosy, what school would that be? She was curious. This brat is leaving us behind, and going legit. He got into the UAS Heroics department. Can you believe that? Kazuho answered for him. Momo's eyes lit up in surprise. Really, you'll be going there, as well? Yeah, the letter came in the mail yesterday. He meekly admitted. Then a pause before he caught what she said. What do you mean, as well? Oh yes, well, it must be a small world. I will also be attending the UA Heroics course this upcoming year. They assigned me to Class 1A. How about yourself? She asked in interest. Izuku was gaping like a fish. The pop idol saw his state, and slapped him in the back of his head to reset so he could start working again. Yeah. Same. It looks like it was fate that brought you here, Yaoyorozu. I guess we are celebrating your success as well? Koichi raised his water glass in a manner to inspire a cheers. Oh, thank you very much, Crawler. What is your real name? I'm sorry, it is rude to call you by your vigilante names. Momo didn't want to seem rude. You can just call me Himawari. He told her his last name. I don't mind you calling me Popstep, but my real name is Kazuho Hanayama. Kazuho was interrupted by an embarrassed Momo. Looking at the trio, she blushed. I'm sorry, but I am a fan, and your name is public knowledge, she confessed. Don't worry about it, Yaoyorozu. Kazuho is pretty cool. You call her pretty much anything like Mrs. Himawari. Izuku slid in a dig at his boss, which he thought was fair. Kazuho glared at him, obviously annoyed, before a conniving smirk spread across her face. That is very funny, Izuku. She drew out saying his name, which clued him in on how he had messed up really badly. You know, Yo-Yo, Greenhorn was talking about you last Friday after you tried to help him. You should have heard him talk about you, calling you a bombshell. She let the words hang in the air. Momo's blush became a darker shade of red while Izuku's was bright, as he frantically tried to salvage the situation, in his eyes. No. I didn't mean those were your words. I didn't say anything that provocative. He toed the line of not putting his foot in his mouth well. Fine, but you did call her attractive. Her sharp remark cut Izuku since he wouldn't lie, and say he hadn't. Instead, he did his damnedest to steer the conversation elsewhere. Anyway, Yaoyorozu, I didn't see you at the entrance exam. I'm pretty sure, I have seen you before at concerts, and I would have at least recognized you. So, where were you in the auditorium? Her blush had died down, and Momo began to awkwardly scratch her knuckles. Yes, well, the truth is I wasn't at the entrance exam. I actually got in via recommendation. Wow, we got ourselves a future top 10 hero here. Kazuho quickly jokes, impressed by whatever potential her fan must have had to get such a thing. You must be quite strong then, wouldn't you? Koichi couldn't help but be intimidated, remembering how his attempt at entering a hero course had flopped. Riko recommendation. That is amazing. It would be incredible if they let you in without taking the exam. Seriously, only let the smartest and strongest get a recommendation. Izuku found a new way to make Momo blush at the gushing of praise. Well, we did take an exam to ensure we were up to stuff, so it isn't as if we didn't prove our worth. She tried to humble her achievement. Still, I have to admit I am in awe of you, Yaoyorozu. I bet you are going to be a great hero. Izuku kept complimenting, making her blush even more. Kazuho added in a mocking tone. Izuku did his best not to draw attention to it. I'm sure you are going to do great. And if you ever do need help, I'm sure Izuku will be able to help you. He is always willing to do so. Koichi added, mostly in earnest. That sounds good. I hope you do not mind your friends offering your assistance, Midoriya? Momo asked, hoping they were not being rude. Of course not. I'm sure you won't need it, but I will be willing to help if you want it. Izuku felt awkward, knowing Koichi meant well, but it was out of his comfort zone. She nodded slowly before pausing. She looked uncertain about something before looking back up. Then would you mind helping me in combat sparring? What? Izuku flatly asked in surprise. Well, you have had no doubt the most experience of anyone in class about real combat. I know everyone else fought the robots for the entrance exam, but real people are much different. I would like to come to the UA as prepared as I can be, so if you do not mind, I would think it would be very helpful for us to spar before classes begin. Her words came with a few pauses, and a wavering tone that grew more assured, as she convinced herself the plan was wise. Izuku looked at his two friends, each of them giving him different expressions. Kazuho was smirking like a cat that caught the canary, and he realized she was going to be of little help. He could already tell she was having too much fun teasing him, or even them. Koichi gave a knowing look that told him he thought it wasn't the worst idea in the world. Gulping, he nodded. Sure, I can do that. Momo smiled, a little surprised by his quick agreement. That is great. I go to a gym on the east side of town, called Athletic Hall. It has a combat room that we can use, and has top-of-the-line equipment. Athletic Hall? Koichi interrupted in a surprised tone. Yes, what of it? Momo was confused. That place is so expensive. When I was looking for a gym to go to, it had an annual membership cost of 500,000 yen a year. I found a good gym that costs me less than 100,000 annually. Koichi was shocked that this girl was casually going to such an expensive place. She drummed her fingers on the table, a little embarrassed. I didn't know how much my parents spent for the membership. I knew it. I bet you are a rich girl, ain't you, Yo-Yo? Kazuho pointed at her a little triumphantly. You always gave off that feeling. Not in a bad way, of course. Well, I guess that would be true. My parents have been very successful. I hope you don't judge me for that. Izuku could see what people had in the past. It wasn't her fault she had grown up in the good life. I never would, Yaoyorozu. Just because your parents have money doesn't mean anything about you. A person should be judged by their actions, not by what they have. He tried to wisely tell her. She looked towards him, and smiled. Thank you, Midoriya. I'm glad you feel that way. I hope you don't mind going to such an expensive gym. Something triggered in his mind. Not to be rude or anything, but will I have to pay for a guest pass or anything? As much as he didn't care if she had money, it didn't mean he should be reckless since he sort of didn't. Of course not. Even if they did charge us to bring guests, there is no way I could make you pay for that. It would be my idea after all. She earnestly told him. Finally, the sushi platter came to the table, curbing the conversation, as the four patrons began to dine on the good, but, as Momo pointed out, not great, sushi, and enjoyed more casual conversations about simple things. They agreed to meet Saturday at noon at the athletic hall, and Izuku did well to hide his eagerness to meet with his future classmate when she was with the group. Koichi returned to his place of work, leaving the duo of him, and Kazuho to walk back to her van which they had used to get here. He was on edge, as he felt the expression radiating off of Kazuho. The teasing he had done when he realized she and Koichi had finally gotten together seemed more foolish in retrospect. So, she gave you her number? She started, innocently enough. He nodded, having spent enough time around her to know where it was going. Yeah, I gave her mine. So we can contact each other in case something comes up. He told her the reason why they had done this, as if she hadn't heard it a short while before. And willingly giving up her Saturday to spend time with you. She began to turn the screw. To train and spar. Something a lot of friends would do for each other. It was safe to assume they were friendly with each other, him and Momo? That wouldn't be a hard thing to buy. So just a boy and a girl, and a whole gym of people. Izuku quickly tacked on. An interesting choice for a first date, isn't it? She turned the screw hard into his side. His head dropped. It's not like that, he exclaimed aloud. We're just classmates, maybe friends. For now. She added on with a grin. Who knows what will happen once you get to know each other better, and start spending time together. Izuku gritted his teeth. Why are you doing this, Kazuho? He could tell this would not be the only time she played matchmaker between the two of them. Because Greenhorn, your little yo-yo, is a total package. She is obviously smart, pretty cool to hang out with, friendly, shares common interests with you. Her parents are loaded and, like you said before, she's a bombshell. I didn't call Yaoyorozu a bombshell. He technically had, but it didn't count in his eyes. Whatever, fine, she's good looking. I'm just saying that she must be comfortable around you if she is going to invite you somewhere with her. So lean into it. You don't need to be and I quote your lovely little childhood friend here, a loser Deku about it. Man up, make a move, get the girl. Simple, right? Can't she just be a friend? He asked hypothetically. Come on, Izuku, do you really just want to be friends with her? She poked him in the head, as they turned the corner to the block where they parked the van. He grunted, and swatted her hand away. He also didn't answer her question. Because yes, maybe he didn't want to be just friends with the girl. But he barely knew her, and he thought it was a little ridiculous, and unfair to her, for his friends to try, and pair him off. Why yes, I should take relationship advice to the girl who pined after someone for 5 years before he made a move. He commented, as he entered the van by the passenger seat door. I don't have to drive you anywhere, you know that? She was annoyed, as she entered through the driver's door. And I don't have to help you run a show since I technically am supposed to be focused on getting ready to enter the UA. He came back, putting on his seatbelt. The show won't be until tonight, I'm sure Koichi will be available. Or maybe I can get one of the fans to do it. I'm sure Yo-Yo wouldn't mind. She quickly came back with, Koichi is staying late, and you wouldn't trust any of them to do the stuff you need. Izuku pointed out the flaws in her threat. She rolled her eyes. Whatever, greenhorn. Get a guy a girlfriend, and all of a sudden he gets a backbone. She had the last laugh, as she started the van, as he was blushing, and embarrassed to even look at his friend. The plans were set to meet up for another Renegade show that night, and he was dropped off at his place. His mom wasn't in, as she had woken up already, and was out for personal reasons, so Izuku took the time to catch up with his various studies. While he knew he was a fair bit ahead of wherever UA the curriculum was going to start, he knew he had to have great grades to keep up with the grind of hero studies, so he was putting in the time now instead of pulling an all-nighter come June or July. He was only at it for 20 minutes or so when he got a quick text message that surprised him. It was even more surprising to see it came from his father, who almost never texted. He guessed he must have been at work, so the speed of it was key. A second, follow-up text appeared before he could open it up. Heard your letters are out. You get in? And son, have you talked to your mom yet about visiting? He hadn't, but had been planning on it once he got the letter. Seeing no time was better than the present, he decided to ask her once she got back from her errands. Quickly he replied in a text. Smiley face. Yeah, I did. How did you hear about it? It was a fair question, since this stuff was usually kept on the down low, and he hadn't mentioned it. It was also a delaying tactic, if he was lucky enough for his mom to show up shortly. Apparently his dad was right by the phone because he got a reply in a minute, as he lazily looked over the chemical table. Dashi got mad that his kid didn't make it. So, another parent then. Makes sense, literally thousands of kids had applied. What did your mom say? It seemed like he couldn't hold it off until she got here. Waited to ask until I got in, so she was in a good mood. She's out now, gonna ask when she is back. He went back to his textbook, waiting for a reply from his dad. After a few minutes, he began to search his phone for hero news while half attempting to study, waiting for his dad to reply. After about 20, he figured his dad wouldn't for a little while. Either he had to go back to work, or he didn't like his answer. Izuku decided it was what it was, and began to re-immerse himself in the studying. That only lasted another 10 or 15 minutes before his mother arrived from her errands. She had been just out and about, and talking with her friends. Izuku, what class did you say you were in? She asked, as she went over her talks with her friends. He was still half studying, so was a little surprised by the question. 1A. Why? He asked her. Oh, that's good. Katsuki is in that class, as well. Mitsuki mentioned it when she told us about his frustrations with his rank. Izuku let out a long sigh, having been hoping with Zero that maybe Kaken wasn't in his class. He was a friend, but he was crude, and ultra-competitive to a degree that was unhealthy in his opinion. Being the best was something Izuku understood, crushing everyone on the way was something he didn't. Zero, the friend I met at the exam, was on the same battlefield as him, and said he must have done really well with all the robots he defeated. What was his rank? He was curious about that, however. You know how he is, he was so mad that he came in second. Apparently the boy in first place scored 84 in total, compared to his 77. She recounted to him. Izuku's mouth couldn't help but hang open. 84? 77? First place alone nearly doubled him, and Kaken beat him by 30 points. He could have doubled his villain points, and still lost to him. Maybe it was the distance, but he hadn't realized how powerful he had become. Along with the boy in first, Yayorozu, and the other recommendation students. Everyone was so powerful in his class. And I stumbled in Greenhorn. Him. Shaking the jitters off of him, he reminded himself he had earned it, and had proved himself worthy of standing alongside them. Closing his jaw, he just nodded towards his mother. That does sound like Kaken. He always wants to be the top dog. Deciding this conversation was perfect for a segue, he made one. Anyway, Mom, I've been wanting to ask you about something. Dad called me last Friday. Has Sashi called you? His mother was surprised, not expecting that apparently. I mean, he does contact me sometimes. It isn't like he ignores me. He made a defense of his father. Of course, honey, it is just a bit surprising. I haven't really spoken to him in a couple of weeks, she admitted. And it's about that. He was asking that, if it wasn't too much trouble, we could spend the day, and go see him. His mother became silent at the suggestion. Staring blankly, it didn't seem like she liked the idea, so Izuku elaborated. He just wants to see us and, well, he is trying to handle his problems, and he doesn't think he can handle coming back to town yet. I know it's a lot, so I just wanted to hear what you think about it. Not yet. She seemed to answer immediately after his argument. Huh? He reactively asked. Not yet. I'm not ready for something like that. It's just not right now. Maybe in a little while when the time is right, and well, she began to mumble, and go on, making Izuku quite aware where he got the habit from. It's okay, Mom. He cut her off. I understand. Which was mostly the truth. I'll tell him you can't right now. She began to nod a little frantically. Thank you, Izuku honey. Her eyes began to well up. What did I do to deserve a son as good as you? She reached in for a hug, which he quickly leaned into, and let his shirt get a little soaked. Mom said she can't right now. Maybe later. Told her to call you. He sent the text after his mother had finished her crying on her shoulder. He kept half studying chemistry, and half looking at his phone for hero news for a few attention splits. He accidentally took hero notes in the middle of his chemistry notebook. He ripped the page out to join the latest edition of his hero analysis for the future notebooks, which reminded him he had to change the name of the last two, so brazenly called Vigilante Quirk Analysis Notes. As he began to put away things so he could head out to set up the pop step, he finally got a text back from his dad. Fine, he could tell his dad wasn't pleased, but he didn't know what to do. It lingered on his mind on his way to meet up with Kazuho. They were quick to get to work, with Izuku doing his best to brush off the teasing she was throwing at him, as they finalized the set list, and her makeup. Though calling her Momo Midoriya did garner a rather large reaction from him that nearly caused him to faceplant into her van. It wasn't too long after sunset when they converged on their location. Using a nearby trio of trees as his out-of-the-way base, Izuku set up the speakers and laptop. As soon as he began to play the opening background music, Pop Step made her entrance, bounding into the scene with a flourish and a grin. They were taking a risk by playing in such an open plaza so close to downtown, but they knew the rules. They had done minimal advertising for this show, as Kazuho was treating this Pop Step performance as a recruitment to her fan base over a fan appreciation event. So the fact that the denizens of Mizutafa's city were slow to cluster to watch the idol break into song was no big surprise to either, as they pressed into the first song. About 10 minutes into the third track, Izuku was happy to see a small crowd of 50 or so pausing to watch her dance and sing to the music. A few members in the crowd were regulars, but most were people who gathered to watch before they moved on to continue with their night, so the show was looking like a big success. Watching the crowd, he didn't notice the person walking up behind him until there was a gentle tapping on his shoulder. Quickly turning, Izuku paled to see Eraserhead staring down at him in civilian garb. It was very similar to his hero garb, except without the goggles, and a lot less scarf. Izuku Midoriya, why am I not surprised? That was incredibly worrisome, as he wasn't sure how Eraserhead knew his full name. He knew him as Midoriya, but he had never mentioned the full name. Unless he had gotten it from his brief encounters with the police. But either way, everyone knew using someone's full name was meant to tell them they were in trouble. Good evening, Eraserhead. Don't worry, we aren't breaking any laws with this show. This is a public plaza, performances are legal until 9 p.m. We are not violating the sound laws, we aren't panhandling or advertising our goods, and we aren't using any fireworks or firework-related objects. He quickly went through the list so he could prove they were in fact on the good side of the law. Very shaky, but good. Eraserhead gaze lingered on him, as he took a second to analyze the scene to determine if all of the points Izuku said were logical. Izuku noticed a glimmer of acceptance in his eyes, realizing he had been right in his assessment. He didn't get to enjoy it, as Eraserhead spoke again. Indeed, but that isn't why I came to Midoriya. He began, using his usual term for the boy. And I ask you to call me Aizawa, or Sensei from now on instead of my hero name. Shit. Aizawa heard the natural response of Izuku, even under his breath, glaring at him when he realized it. Izuku had the decency to look away in embarrassment. But it was a natural reaction, one he should have seen coming. He had known from some time ago from Midnight that Eraser Aizawa was a homeroom teacher from Year 1 Heroics Department. Considering there were 2 classes, it was 50-50 he ended up with the underground hero. Still, it was disheartening to know your teacher was famous for expelling students, even getting rid of his entire class this previous year by the school festival. The earlier feelings of doubt tried their best to manifest again. I am sorry about that, Sensei. I was surprised to learn you are going to be my teacher. He tried to explain. And that causes profanity? Aizawa lorded over him. Izuku took a second to make sure everything about the show was going well, and that Pop Step hadn't noticed the heroic interlude he was facing. Seeing it was good, he told the truth. Well, I heard from Midnight about how you often expel students, and since I had to work so much to make it, I guess I am a bit worried since you probably don't have the highest opinion of me. Normally he might have fibbed, but his encounters with the man in the past told him he usually could tell when you were lying. Aizawa took a moment to look up at the Pop Step performance before looking back down at Izuku. Regardless of what you may think, I respect your tenacity and desire for improvement. You want to be a hero with everything you have, a noble goal indeed. Even if I expel you, I have a feeling you would just continue your actions with her and Crawler. He told him. Something in Izuku's head clicked. And it would be better to nurture that desire than neglect it? He asked. Aizawa's eyes lit up in confused recognition of his words. Where did you hear that phrase? Principal Nedza said a hero used it to describe me in his letter telling me I was accepted. That was you, wasn't it? Izuku asked, confident he was right. Aizawa glared into the abyss for a few seconds, a frown growing on his face. He was worried this distaste was directed at him. Then he heard the man speak. Of course, that little schemer. He would say that. It was obvious he had meant the principal. He returned his attention to Izuku. Yes, those were my words. You don't need to speak of it again. While I do believe in those words, I will hang on my ability to remove my trust in you if you break it. I expect you to give everything you have in my class, and in every class at UA. Do you understand? Izuku looked offended, and in awe. Of course, Sensei. Why would I give anything less to my dream? He asked rhetorically. He looked down, and smirked at his student. I knew there was a reason I didn't turn you in with your ragtag bunch of unaffiliated sidekicks. Izuku stopped his own chuckle at the turn of phrase Koichi, and Kazuho would pull out on occasion when working with established heroes. And just so we are clear, Aizawa interrupted his amusement, and regained his focus. Your only capacity in working with Pop Step is as her manager? Izuku nodded. Yeah, of course. Even though I probably won't be able to do much once I start classes in the UA. I have to focus on being the best I can be, right, Sensei? Aizawa gaze lingered on Pop Step performing one more time before responding. While that is true, it would be foolish to neglect the ones who helped you here. Everyone needs friends, good friends. And despite their poor judgments, I think you have made a few good friends in them. Am I wrong? Izuku shook his head, grinning at how cool Eraserhead, his new sensei, was. No, Sensei, you are right. They are pretty good friends. Aizawa let out a sigh, and pulled out his eye drops, putting them in each eye. Unless I run into one of her concerts again, I don't want to see you until the first day of classes. Can you handle that, Midoriya? He asked, beginning to walk away. Izuku waved at his sensei leaving. No problem, Sensei. He basked in the glow of how well that conversation went. Until he remembered he was doing something, and got back to work on managing Pop Step's show. A few days later on Saturday, a quarter before noon, Izuku wandered with a gym bag over one arm, and a phone in the other hand to the front of the athletic hall. Wearing nicer-looking casual clothing, not knowing what one wore to an expensive gym. He was shooting a text to Yaoyorozu asking where she was, and that he was here. She quickly sent a text back. "Give me 2 minutes, I'm walking, and just 2 blocks away." Izuku put his phone in his pocket, and stood by an empty set of bike racks, gently tapping on the metal to hide his nerves, and pass the time. A very pretty girl was coming to meet him, and hang out with him. He was also getting ready to teach someone about live combat situations, and demonstrate his fighting ability. The nerves were coming in both directions at him. "Midoriya, I'm here." He heard a voice call out from his left. Turning, he saw her arrive wearing a simple pink blouse, and gray calf-high sweatpants along with her gym bag. She was also wearing a headband, no doubt to keep the hair out of her eyes. Gulping, he waved at her. "Hey Yaoyorozu. How are you doing?" She smiled at him, adjusting her gym strap bag on her shoulder. "Good, good. And you?" "Great," he answered. She nodded, happy with his answer. She nodded towards the athletic hall entrance. "Are you ready to begin?" "Yeah." He did another quick one-word answer with a nod to accompany it. Finding that agreeable, she took the lead, and walked into the athletic hall, and he quickly followed. He was hoping he didn't make a fool of himself once they got serious. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic. Link is in the description. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.